Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence are off to Yellowstone National Park. That's where they're gonna link up with Interior Secretary David Bernhardt, who's going to give them a tour of Yellowstone National Park. In fact, Secretary Bernhardt now with us live right here on Montana Talks from Yellowstone National Park. And Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you on the show. I told Mrs. Pence that we would tell you better take good care of her when she makes that trip to Yellowstone today. So good to have you on the show.
Aaron, thanks for having me. We will. That's the one thing we absolutely will do. We're very excited to have the Vice President and the Second Lady up here, and everybody loves America's parks, and the Pence family loves the parks and has actually taken advantage of park activities in the past, and so we're excited to have them up here helping us out with some infrastructure challenges that we have up here.
Yeah, you talk about everybody loves our national parks, especially Yellowstone and Glacier, but despite the love for our national parks in previous administrations, there's always this effort to buy more federal land, but then they don't take care of what they got. We've seen a backlog in maintenance and infrastructure needs in our national parks. I understand that's going to be a big focus. What do you expect the Vice President to focus in on today, and maybe some news that he might announce?
Well, I'm really hoping he'll talk about the reality of that backlog and the need for us to move forward. And the President's administration, President Trump, proposed a solution to this deferred maintenance crisis by establishing a fund that would allow us to take care of these significant infrastructure issues that we have. The reality is we have almost $12 billion of maintenance projects that have just been let to stand. And as a result of that, we have a lot of work to do to bring things up to snuff to serve the American people in a way that we can ensure their safety and that they have a very enjoyable experience at these parks.
I thought it was kind of comical. Like literally the first week you're on the job, some of those same bogus AstroTurf environmental groups were already attacking you. And then now they're making up claims, the Trump administration wants to mine uranium in the Grand Canyon. It's just like the theater of the absurd with some of these groups, I'd imagine for you.
Well, you're so right about that. For example, the concept about mining in the Grand Canyon National Park is just completely ridiculous, and they have to throw these things out, I guess, because the reality is we're moving very aggressively on a very strong agenda that involves ensuring that there's a great conservation legacy for the president. And the reality is we're providing greater public access for hunting and fishing and recreation. We're spending a great deal of time focused on expanding our recreational opportunities across federal parks. We just rolled out an initiative to expand hunting and fishing opportunities on 1.4 million acres within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge System. And so we're trying to make sure that folks have the opportunity to get out and enjoy these public lands, and when they come enjoy them, that they end up with a really good experience. And so we're trying to take care of what we have, give people more opportunities to get out there, and that is a counter to the mantra that certain philosophical folks want to have, which is basically keep people out. Don't have people invited into these public lands to use them and enjoy them.
In fact, speaking of public lands and public access, oftentimes these groups who talk about public access have supported efforts to actually limit public access by shutting down trails and other access roads and things like that. I saw a headline, though, from a Montana perspective. I think Paul Bedard had this for the Washington Examiner. A river runs through it. Many people know that book and that movie, A River Runs Through It. Of course, Montana. A river runs through it, soon to be open to all. There's an effort to buy about 13,000 acres of land along that historic stretch of the Blackfoot River as well.
That's exactly right, and that's a great example of what we're doing. And I've issued an order that requires that for every dollar we spend in acquisition or exchanging land or disposing of land, we specifically think about what will it mean to public access. And, that piece of property will be very beneficial for public access. It obviously has a wonderful storied history. But that is precisely what we're trying to do, is give people, the true conservationists, the people who hunt and fish and recreate, give them the opportunities that they deserve. The reality is the American wildlife conservation model was based on and is dependent on those sportsmen, the fishermen and the hunters, getting out and enjoying the land, because the reality is that's how we pay for wildlife conservation in America.
Well, and also another way that we pay for it too is through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is funded through energy dollars, right? And we got a lot of energy jobs here in Montana. That's part of what you want to do, is say, okay, historically the federal government has used energy revenue to plow that into purchase more federal land. So, the thought is, well, why not do the same thing to take care of this infrastructure backlog in our national parks at Glacier, Yellowstone, and elsewhere?
You're spot on there, Aaron. That's exactly, what we're trying to do. And in fairness, Secretary Zinke and the Trump administration worked very hard for 2 years to push this forward and to get it through the administration and then get some bipartisan support on it has been successful. And now we just need to get it over the finish line. And, we need Congress to do their job. But that is the bargain. At the end of the day, we know, particularly with the American energy renaissance occurring in a variety of ways, where, we now have more production than we've ever had. With that happening, we can take some of those dollars and use them to take care of the stuff that we have that desperately needs taking care of.
It just makes sense, that's for sure. We've only got about a minute and a half left here with Secretary of Interior David Bernhardt before he greets Vice President and Second Lady Karen Pence in Yellowstone later today. I want to get your take, the drugs and the meth epidemic in the West, particularly in Indian country as well. That's what the Vice President's focus was on yesterday. What are you doing at Interior to help crack down on this meth epidemic?
Well, let me say first and foremost, as a parent, some of these stories are just heartbreaking and tragic. And the reality is, in Indian country, the relationship of domestic violence, missing and exploited women, drug abuse is significant. And what we're doing is we've worked very hard. First off, the president in May signed a declaration recognizing the reality of the missing and murdered Indigenous women in the United States. And then we've put together a very broad-based plan that brings stakeholders together that says, look, it's time for us to do real things here, and that's address unsolved cases, improve reporting of murdered and missing people.
And it's got to be a combined effort, just like tackling the meth epidemic, local, state, federal, tribal, you name it. Secretary Bernhardt, a pleasure having you. Thanks for joining us live from Yellowstone National Park.
Thanks, Aaron. You have a great day.
All right, you too.